YouTube, welcome. It's another Johnny TCG video. I'm happy to see you today. Today I've got a video on Boa Hancock from OP07 in the OP08 format. Most people are talking about Blue Luffy nowadays, and I get it. It is a great deck. It's only going to get even better once the new starter decks come out. But I'm also a fan of playing Boa, and so I went back to it after a long time of not playing it. And I was a little rusty at first, but now I think I'm back in the groove of things. It actually recently won a regional in Australia, I believe. So Boa's kind of on the map now. Boa Chads, stand up. Not a lot of things change between the OP07 list and the OP08 list, but I do wanted to do a little bit of a deck profile and talk about some of the changes that I made. Taking a look at our leader first, Boa is a 5-cost, 5,000 power mono blue leader. Her effect is on your turn, once per turn. When a character is removed from play via one of your effects, if your hand is 5 cards or less, you may draw a card. So the name of the game for this leader is really making sure that you're keeping a low hand size so you can get the most out of her effect. The way you usually do this is by countering out a lot early. Then you're going to play a lot of cards that bounce other cards. Bounce your opponent's cards, bounce your own cards, bounce everybody's cards. It doesn't matter. This effect works regardless of whose card is getting bounced. It feels a little weird at first, countering out of early swings that you usually would take if you're playing other leaders. But because Boa's effect requires you to have 5 cards or less, you need to counter out of some of those swings. With cards like Gecko Moria anyway, you're going to be able to get some of those counters back. As you can see, we are really relying on the 7 Warlords package. We have a lot of the 4-drops that are also found in Dofi. That includes Gecko, Dracula Mihawk, Edward Weevil, Law, and then probably the best one, Jinbei. Any blue deck that runs Jinbei always feels like it has a little bit of a shot early game, just because when you're able to play 2 half-decent characters on your 4-Dawn turn, it can really be a problem if your opponent can't remove them relatively quickly, especially when you go Jinbei into Edward Weevil, which is a 4-cost, 6,000 power. You get to draw a card from Edward Weevil. That's a beautiful combo. We do run the Sengoku Searcher. This is great to find some of the pieces that we need for our Jinbei combo. We have our 6-cost Boa, which is absolutely amazing, preventing one of your opponent's characters that are not Monkey D. Luffy from attacking and bottom decking a 1-cost, so you're potentially using your leader's ability as well. We also have 2 10-drop Kaidos that bounce your opponent's 8 and 3-cost characters to their hand, 1 of each. I think this one feels better than this other one, the 10-drop Secret Rare Kaido. This allows you to draw 4 cards if your opponent has 3 life cards or less. I'm so conflicted with this card. Rarely does it feel like it has really turned the tide in a game for me. Really only in situations where I'm already winning does it really feel like it's making a difference. Yeah, its ability is great, but I don't know. I could use some convincing. I would also hear you out if you didn't run any of these. Another strong card that we added from OP08 is the 6-cost, 7,000 power Jozu, a Whitebeard's pirate card with 1,000 counter. This card is great in this deck. What you're going to be able to do is you play it and then you may return one of your characters to your own hand. And then if you do that, you may return one of your opponent's characters with the cost of 6 or less to their hand. So if you have a Sengoku or another low-cost character, you can pop that back to your hand and then send a 6-cost back to your opponent's hand. That's great value. We run this and Boa at 3 of eaches. I think that's fine. I definitely think ratios could be tweaked a little bit though. Going lower than 3 seems a little risky to me, but that's just my opinion. Gum Gum Red Rock, Gravity Blade Raging Tiger. What's there to say about them? They're just great removal cards. These cards are going to be really helpful against Blue Nami, Black Yellow Luffy, and a lot of other decks in the meta. And to spice things up, we do have 1 Perfume Femur. Now this is basically a Diable Jambe, specifically for a 7 Warlords of the Sea type character. I like this as a 1 of. If you told me it was a 2 of, I wouldn't call you crazy. If you told me you didn't run it at all, I also wouldn't call you crazy. This deck will probably change a bit once the new starter decks drop. I imagine this could probably use some of the cards from the Dofi starter deck. So keep that in mind right now. But as it is, this list feels pretty decent. I have a ton of success against Bonney. That deck, if you draw half decent, feels like an auto win almost. Playing Gravity Blade Raging Tiger on curve when they have a Basil Hawkins and an Rouge, or a Cavendish and an Rouge, feels so good. It's not an automatic win, but I feel like that's one of the easier matchups with this leader. I also found this deck to be pretty favorable into Marco, and maybe that's just because people are still learning how to play Marco. I know Marco gets a lot better once the starter deck comes out, so it's only for a temporary time, but with what's currently available, I think this has a decent matchup into Marco. On the other side of that, this deck feels horrible into Rob Lucci. I cannot beat a Rob Lucci with this deck. Maybe I'm just corny, maybe I'm a scrub, but Rob Lucci seems to have an answer for everything. You're able to bottom deck their characters, but they're able to KO your characters and in the process build a board, which is not something you can really do. So in that matchup, I think you just have to dodge them. If you're going to a tournament, say a prayer beforehand and manifest that you will not see any Rob Lucci's. Before we get into the gameplay, of course I have a custom leader to give away. I'll throw it up on screen right now. We've got a custom Boa Hancock leader. Who doesn't want a custom leader? All you have to do to win this custom leader is 1, leave a like, 2, leave a comment, and 3, leave 2 comments. Just kidding. 1 comment is sufficient. If this video gets 20 likes in the first 24 hours, I'll send it to 1 US-based commenter. This is not my own artwork. This is from the One Piece Treasure Cruise game. I am not selling these. It is just a fun little project of mine. If you enjoy the content, consider subscribing. We are almost at 500 subscribers, and I made a deal with my wife that if I hit 500 subscribers, she has to let me get a life-size Chopper plush. So fingers crossed there. You're probably tired of me yapping, so roll the gameplay. First up, we have a game against Black Luffy from Starter Deck 14. We are going to mulligan our first hand. We are on the odd curve, which I do not love because it does not mean we can play Jinbei on curve. But we do have a Doflamingo for 3 cost. Maybe I will play that. Maybe I'll just swing for 8. I decide to swing for 5, and then I will play out the Doflamingo, set the top of our deck. That is a pretty solid list of cards, so I am going to keep that at the top. We've got the Boa, we've got the Jozu, and the Kaido will be nice as well. That Red Rock could be important later to get rid of a Jack. This deck is most likely running it. They're going to go 5,000 at me. I am going to counter out with 2K Crocodile. With this deck, you really want to counter out early, even if it means over countering, because you want your leader ability to be active, and then you'll be able to bring those cards back with Gecko Moria 4-drop. Here I've got 5 done to work with. I'm thinking I'm going to swing 5 with Doflamingo and then 5 with Boa as well, make them give me some cards from their hand. I am swinging 5 with Dofi because they will probably be able to get it off the board if they want to with Kuzan anyway. Now they'll have to swing into it if they want to get it off the board. We're going to start their turn by swinging 5,000 with Kuzan into my Dofi blocker. This is fine with me. Dofi basically acted as a blocker still, so that's absolutely cool with me. They're going to play down another Kuzan, which isn't ideal. Then swing at me for 5,000 with brand new. I take that one, and then I will trash another Dofi blocker as counter from their 5,000 leader swing. Here I've got a couple of different options. I'm thinking I try to get this rested Kuzan off the board. I'm going to start by swinging 5,000 with Jinbei. They give it to me, which I found surprising. Now I'm going to swing 5,000 with Gecko into their leader. They're going to counter out of that with the Rebecca. I'm going to swing 6,000 into leader now. And then with 6 done, I could play Boa and prevent the Kuzan from attacking, which is what I do. I also could have played down the Jozu, popped one of my cards back to hand, and then sent the Kuzan back to their hand as well. I don't think I could have went wrong either way. Let me know in the comments what you would have done. I'm interested to hear your opinion on this. They're going to give 1 Don to their leader, giving all their characters +1 cost. And now they're going to swing 5,000 into Gecko. I'm thinking I should counter out of this, and I do. I give them the Jozu. Maybe I should have kept the Jozu and instead given them the Pudding. But I'm glad I kept the Croc because I did need that to counter out of the leader swing. They played the Sanji to pop the Gecko anyway, which isn't the biggest deal. I at least got to keep the Jinbei. We're going to start with a 6,000 swing into their leader. Let's see what they do here. Will they give me a 2K? They do. That's cool with me. I'm debating on how I want to deal with their board. I should probably send the Kuzan back to their hand off of Jozu. I'm going to swing 7,000 with leader, which they'll take. And then I'm going to swing 8,000 with Boa Hancock. They will take that as well. I am pretty satisfied with how this turn has gone so far. Now it's time for Jozu. I'm going to pop the Jinbei back to my hand and then send the Kuzan back to their hand. I think that's a decent play right there. Let me know what you think. Even though I had to get rid of my Jinbei and send them back to hand, it got rid of the Kuzan, which can make my life a lot more difficult. We'll probably see a big body here, either a Jack, a Gecko, or maybe even an Isho. They could even play 8 cost Sabo if they're crazy, or even if they're crazier, 9-drop Kaido. They're going to go with the Gecko Moria. This makes their leader ability active. They will be a 6,000 power leader. I'm happy that they just play out the Rebecca and brand new. I didn't have to worry about any of my characters being KO'd this turn. I don't have a ton of counter, but they won't be able to get my Boa off the board, which is great. I'll take the 7,000 swing from Sanji, which I get a 2K Croc from, and then I will counter out of the 7,000 leader swing as well. We're going to Red Rock the Gecko Moria. We could have played Kaido as well, but I think the Red Rock is the right play. And then we're going to hit him with the Pudding. That was a perfectly timed Pudding. Absolutely amazing. Right now I'm feeling great. We're going to go 5 into life. They counter out of that. Here, I don't know how much it really matters. I'm going to start by swinging 7 into Sanji. They probably have a 2K to give me, and they do. And now 8,000. I could go at lead or at Sanji, but either way, I know they're going to block with Rebecca. Right here, I think I'm sitting pretty good. They might have another big body to play, and if they do, that's a little bit troublesome for me. But they don't. They play down the 4-cost Kuzan, which is a good sign. They're going to swing 6 into my life with Sanji. I'm thinking I could take this. I also could just counter out of it. I'm thinking countering is probably the better play here. I decided to take it, which in hindsight I find interesting. They could have loaded up Don on their leader and swung big, or with brand new as well. I can counter out of their 5,000 power swing from brand new, but they could have done 7 on brand new, which would have made things awkward. 4 Don left up for them. They might be playing a Rebecca, maybe another Kuzan, maybe a Borsalino. Couple different options for them. We're just going to go 9,000 into Jozu. I'm thinking I should counter out of this one. They're not going to be able to remove my board. And next turn, I will be able to honestly pressure for game. But I'll probably play it safe and just go Kaido. Bounce back the Kuzan and a brand new. I'll try to remove the Sanji just to get some cards out of their hand, which they don't even counter out of that one. Right now it's feeling like I've got this game locked down. 5,000 into lead, they take that. 8,000 into lead, they are going to take that as well. We could see a concede any moment. We play down the Kaido, we get to bounce back the brand new and Kuzan. We draw a card off of leader ability. It's the 7-cost Gravity Blade Raging Tiger, which if they try to block her up this turn, we will just bottom deck their blockers. That is game. They call for the rematch and I was a little too slow to respond, so they just disconnect. But I definitely would have liked to rematch them. Next up, we have a game against Jewelry Bonney from OP07. Like the name in this title suggests, this matchup is heavily favored into Boa. We get to counter out of their early swings. If we see Gravity Blade on curve, it's hopeless for them because we are just going to bottom deck 2 important characters for them, whether that be Rouge or Basil Hawkins or Cavendish, or now in OP08 a lot of Bonnies will run Carrot. They're going to swing 8,000 at me. Normally I like to counter out of this, but I didn't have 2 2Ks. I would have had to use the 0-cost event, and that just didn't feel great. I'll start with 5,000 from lead. They'll take that, and then I'm going to play Jinbei into Edward Weevil. The 4-cost 6,000 power from EB01 is really good early game. It can end up being a dead card in hand, so I only run 3 of it. 6,000 with their leader into me. I will counter out of that with a 2K Croc. My 6 Dawn turn, there is no clear play. I am going to start by just swinging 6,000 with Edward Weevil. They'll probably rest my Jinbei, which is perfectly fine. Now we're going to swing 7 with lead. Or we could even do 6 with lead and then play down Croc to bounce back the Sengoku. That's an interesting play. It would allow us another search. We could try to find our 6-cost Boa Hancock. I decide just to go 7 with lead. They'll probably take this, and then we go 4-cost Gecko, bring back the 2K Croc to our hand. We've got a lot of counter in hand right now. I like where we're sitting. When you see Jinbei early on in the game, this deck feels so good. Jinbei is just a great card. In any deck, if you see it early, you're going to have a great time. But in this deck specifically, and in this matchup specifically, where they're going to be resting one of your attackers, it is really crucial to find. They swing 7 into Jinbei, and I decide to counter out of that. And now they play down the Carrot to freeze my Edward Weevil. That is no big deal at all. Now it's time, 8 Dawn. They've got 2 bodies on board. You know what time it is. Gravity Blade Raging Tiger. We're going to bottom deck their Carrot and their Rouge, and they are just going to concede. A little bit of a rage quit. That card is just so good in that matchup. I know that was a quick one, but I just had to show you how good Boa is into Bonney. Now we've got a game against Black Purple King. This will be an interesting matchup. We should be able to bottom deck and bounce a lot of their characters. Their Jack, if they play Jack, will make things pretty awkward, but if we can find a red rock, we can get rid of it that way. They're going to start out with the Queen Searcher and draw Oni Island, which is great for them. If you do not find that card as an Animal Kingdom Pirates leader, you're going to have a rough day. They play it out, swing for 5. We will give them the Jinbei as counter because we will bring that back this upcoming turn with our Jinbei Gecko play. We'll start out with 5,000 from lead. They did just use their leader ability, which I would not recommend using it so early. Going down and Dawn is kind of crazy in my opinion. But hey, they're doing what they gotta do. Off the Searcher, they do find a Black Maria, which is great for them. I don't think Black Maria is as good in this deck as it is in Starter Deck 4 Kaido, but it is a solid card nonetheless. They do use its ability, which I think is a little bit of a trap. With the Purple Animal Kingdom Pirates leaders, you want to be ramping as much as possible, and using Black Maria's ability, you're going to go back to whatever my Dawn is, and if I'm not ramping, then that doesn't really do you much good in my opinion. I think if anything, it slows you down. Let me know in the comments if you disagree. Maybe I'm just wrong and stupid, and you can just say F in the chat, bozo. They're going to counter out of my early swings. I'm going to swing 5 with leader, and they are going to take that. Now I'm going to play the Jozu, pop the Sengoku back to hand, and send their Black Maria back to hand. I love that play. Jozu is a really great addition from OP08. They're at 6 Don. We could see a King from starter deck 4 and pop one of my 4K bodies. They are going to go with the Ragnarok to get rid of the Jozu. That's an interesting play. If they can get... I will have the counter to get out of a 6,000 swing into either my Jinbei or Gecko, so they won't be able to remove them. I decide to use the 0 cost event and trash the Sengoku. Now I feel like I don't really have a clear play. My Boa won't get great value because it won't freeze any threatening attackers. I do not have enough Don yet for that 10 drop Kaido. Jinbei into Gecko doesn't feel bad either. I might end up doing that. I just would prefer to develop a big body here. We're going to go 6 into life with Gecko Moria. They take that. They don't want to give me the 2K. They do get the, we're going to find the One Piece Searcher trigger, which is great for them. They are going to find, hopefully not a 10 drop Kaido, but they do have a couple turns before they can play it. They are going to find the Queen Searcher. That is not scary at all. Now we go 6 with leader. We are going to play the Boa Hancock, even though it does not get a lot of value. They've got 8 Don to work with. That's a little bit of an awkward number for them. They'll start with a Queen Search. We were able to bottom deck their other Queen with Boa's ability. They do draw the 2K ulti from starter deck 4. And then they're going to play the Queen Blocker from starter deck 4. I think this is a decent play for them. It's kind of like they're doing the best with what they got. Now they're going to go 7, probably into one of my bodies. And I cannot protect this, so I will have to let it go. Now the question is, do I want to play Boa Hancock, freeze their Queen Blocker, and bottom deck their Queen Searcher? Or do I want to play the 10 drop Kaido? I'm leaning towards 10 drop Kaido because whatever I play this turn will probably get KO'd. I have a feeling they'll play 10 drop Kaido next turn. And even if the 10 drop Kaido gets KO'd, at least it gave me a ton of value by allowing me to draw 4 cards. They're countering and blocking out of my first 2 swings. Now it's time for my 5K leader swing. They do give me the 1K page 1 from OP08. And now we'll play 10 drop Kaido. We draw a bunch of cards. I like the position we're in. We got a couple counter cards and another Boa Hancock. I could see the future there. I'll admit it. I knew that they were going to drop a 10 cost Kaido. I had a feeling in my bones. All my characters are KO'd. It's not the end of the world. We are going to swing 5 with leader, which they will counter out of. I'm going to go with the Boa to freeze that 10 drop Kaido. And now I'll go Jinbei into Weevil to go wide a little bit. The Weevil allows me to draw a card. They're going to play Reiju and draw 2 cards off of that. That's an interesting choice. I'm not sure a ton of people are playing that in the Purple-Black King deck, but I don't think there's one correct, per se, deck list yet, so people are trying out all types of cards. 5,000 into me. I'm just going to counter out of that with the 1K Sengoku, and now it's time to put some pressure on them. I'm debating what I want to do here. I'm thinking that either playing the Boa to freeze their 10 drop Kaido again is a good idea, or Gravity Blade Raging Tigering their Reiju and Black Maria. I'll start with 7,000 from Edward Weevil, which they will counter out of. If they took that, I may have considered pushing for lethal a little bit, but I definitely would not have gone all in. Now I'm going to do 6k with Jinbei. If they want to get out of this, they'll need to give me a 2k. They will give me two 1ks. They are down to one card in hand. I'm just checking out my trash, see if there's anything I would want to bring off maybe a Gecko Moria play. I decided to swing 6 with Leader, which they'll take. Now it's time to swing 8 with Boa. They take that as well. I'm just going to Gravity Blade Raging Tiger. If I did play a Boa, they could have maybe 10-dropped Kaido'd again, so I don't feel like I'd be getting ideal value out of it. But at the same time, that play is a little bit questionable. They're going to play Ragnarok to get rid of the Boa. Now they're going to swing 12 into Weevil. I am thinking I just give them that, or I could even counter out of it. I'll give them that, and hoping that they swing into Jinbei, which, if they do, I will just be able to counter out of that. They played the Reiju instead. They're doing what they can. This is kind of a last-ditch effort, and they concede. GG's. Now we've got a game against Red Blue Marco from OP08. I've seen a ton of these on the sim. This is going to be a matchup you might see a lot of at your locals and on the sim in the upcoming days and weeks. There's a couple different builds people are playing. This looks like to be the Whitebeard Pirates one. They're going to play down the Ezo Searcher for 1 Don and draw the Jozu 2K from OP02. We've got 2 Don to work with. We are going to play down Sengoku and find the 6-cost Boa Hancock. We absolutely love that card. Next turn, we can Jinbei into Edward Weevil, or we could Jinbei into Gecko Moria and bring back a Crocodile if we choose to counter with it this turn. We're going to go Shiraya, which is interesting. I've never seen that played in a Marco deck. Kind of like Purple Black King. A lot of people are trying out Decklist, still trying to find out which deck works the best. I'll go 5,000 into their leader. They are going to block with Shiraya. That's definitely a misplay. They could have just countered out and not done the block. If I was crazy, I could throw down 4 Don on Sengoku and swing into their Shiraya, which I don't think that would be the ideal play either, but if they didn't have any counter in hand, I could have taken it out. We're going to go Jinbei into Gecko, go wide a bit, and bring back the 2K Croc to my hand. I don't think playing Weevil off Jinbei would have been a bad idea either. Using their leader ability, they'll draw 1 card and put 1 card to the top of their deck. They're going to give minus 2,000 to Jinbei. They may be able to remove it, so we'll see. Overall, I have not been super impressed with the Marco leader so far. I do think that people are just still learning it, and there is definitely a little bit of lackluster support until the new starter decks come out, but it's interesting to see the different ways people play it. They're going to swing 6,000 into my leader. I will counter out of that with Croc. Now I'm going to go 5,000 with Jinbei. We do have the Gravity Blade Raging Tiger, which will be perfect for their blockers, but right now I'm only at 6 Don, so I cannot play it just yet. We're going to go 5,000 with Boa into their leader. I'll counter out of that. We're going to actually go 7,000 with Gecko, which they will take. I decided to go with the 4-drop Edward Weevil here. I didn't feel like there was anything worth freezing off Boa's ability, and this deck does play a lot of big characters like Rayleigh, Sanji, Whitebeard, and I want to save the Boa for them. Using Fire Fist, they are able to get rid of my Sengoku and Gecko Moria. They'll probably try to get rid of my Jinbei here, and it will likely succeed. I'll probably let it go. Using leader ability, they'll draw a card, put 1 card on the top of their deck, and then minus Jinbei. They'll swing big into it, and I'll just let it go. I can't counter out of that, or if I want to, I don't want to. They're going to leave 1 Don up. They will. They may have a Radical Beam. Right here, I think the answer is obvious. I'm going to start out by Gravity Blade Raging Tigering both of their blockers, drawing a card off leader ability, and now it's time to swing. I'll start with 6,000 from Edward Weevil, and then I'll do 6,000 with my leader. Now, we didn't develop any bodies this turn, so that is not ideal, but We can play the Boa next turn, we could play the Kaido next turn. Depending on what they do, we might even consider playing Jinbei into Law. They're going to take the Edward Weevil hit and then counter out of the Boa swing. We've got 9 down to work with now. We could see a 9-cost Whitebeard, and that is exactly what we see. Now they're going to swing 7 into Edward Weevil. I'm thinking we counter this with the 2K Law, keep it alive. We're going to be at 10 Don. Unfortunately, the 10-drop Kaido only hits an 8-cost, not a 9-cost. We will drop the 6-cost Boa, which is great in this situation. We are going to freeze their Whitebeard, bottom deck their Izo, and we get to draw a card off of my leader ability. With 4 Don left, I'm thinking I'm just going to swing big with Edward Weevil, 10,000 into them. I think one big swing is better than 2 smaller swings from Weevil and my leader. Let me know if you disagree in the comments. They could hypothetically play Gravity Blade Raging Tiger, and that's what they do. They're able to clear my board. I don't really think they'll be able to do much here though. After they swing at my life, I am probably just going to go all in and swing big. 7,000 at me. I'm going to counter out of this one actually, just to keep my hand size low and make it so my leader ability will be active. We're swinging big, 15,000. I don't know if it's mathematically possible for them to even get out of this if they wanted to. They can't. That is GG's. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. What did you think of those games? We did rematch the Marco player, but it was a slow and boring game, so I did not decide to include it. If you enjoyed today's video, please consider leaving a like, please consider leaving a comment, and please consider leaving a sub. It means so much to the channel. It means so much to me. That was cringe. Editor, take it out. If you made it this far, you're a real one. Shout out to you. Let me know in the comments if there's any leaders you'd want me to play next. I'm always open to suggestions. That's all I got for today. Let me know if you try out this deck list. Let me know if you enjoyed the video. Have a great rest of your day. Peace.